Homeschool conversations often focus on methodologies, how to homeschool, what to do when things go wrong, the curriculum, and so on and so on. There's nothing wrong with that. But today, let's go high level in this episode, and we're going to talk about how homeschool can change the trajectory of you and your children, your entire family, and how it also gives you the ability to rewrite your story, to rewrite your children's story. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at the kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Quick question for you before we get going on today's topic. Are you planning on attending the Wild and Free Conference in Franklin, Tennessee in just a few weeks? Did you get a ticket? If so, guess what? I want to meet up with you. I'm going to attend my very first Wild and Free Conference. I'm so excited. If you are going and you want to meet up, send me a quick email or contact me through message on either Facebook or Instagram so we can set up a time. Maybe we can just meet in between sessions or sit together or meet to get coffee or lunch or dinner or something like that. I would love to be able to set some time intentionally. Or maybe you're going, you're like, I don't know if I can set up something permanent, like something we're definitely, but you're just going to be there and you want to make sure we run into each other. Still contact me and let me know. I'd love to be able to meet up with you face to face in a few weeks. But maybe you are saying, I'm not going to Wild and Free, but I would like to get to a conference this fall. Can I remind you about Little by Little Homeschool Conference? We would love to be able to have you attend. This conference is for Christian homeschool moms, and I want you to consider coming. And the conference is happening next month. So make sure you get your ticket at littlebylittleHomeschool.com/conference. For better or for worse, 2020 happened. But the better part of it, after the worst part, was that it awoke many of us from our slumber. Even those of us who were already homeschooling, we had already made that decision, we were already on that path and we had been at it, maybe it was a year or 2 or a couple years or a decade already. Many of us began then to re-examine our homeschool, re-examine how we spent time with our kids, re-examine our goals and what is actually home education. And I was included in that, and I was already on a path. I've told you many times that we started out just recreating the school at home because that's all I knew. But most of you already know that you don't have to do that. Actually, you shouldn't do that. And so you enter homeschooling already way ahead of us, those of us who just recreated the school classroom. And so in the past few years, some of us have been really awoken. And so that slumber has been broken, and that is the good outcome of all that happened. Now that we are 5 years beyond that and we can see how we can do things differently. And that's so exciting. I think it's exciting. I hope you're excited about it as well. Today's goal is either hopefully maybe going to wake you out of a slumber or empower you on that journey that you are starting to say, okay, things can be different. What does this look like? What should I try to attain to? What should be our vision? What should be our goals for this? And what is actually possible? Or maybe some of you are like, oh no, I've got that kind of figured out. We are out of that mindset and I just want to be inspired. So no matter where you fall on that, the goal of today's episode is to inspire you, but also to just get you today to think high level. I know that you like a lot of those tactical episodes. I see the statistics. I know which ones everybody really likes. They want to know the nitty gritty, the down and the dirty of how to do things. Today's episode, don't pause it, don't stop it, don't move on to some other podcast episode or something. Listen to today's episode because it's going to inform all of that nitty gritty and all of the how-to and the curriculum. It's going to inform all those things. So today we're going to go high level, big picture. And when you're looking for next steps on how to incorporate and how to actually implement these ideas that I'm going to share with you today in this high level, I'm going to encourage you to go over and get yourself enrolled in your homeschool blueprint, because that's going to help you work out all of that tactical stuff. And the link for that is going to be in the show notes for you. The link for everything, as always, if you just go to littlebylittlehomeschool.com, anything usually that I mention that has to do with Little by Little Homeschool, you can go there, and then you can just go ahead and check out the menu and you can find it. But today I want to share with you a few of the ways that homeschooling can rewrite the story. The first is that when it comes to homeschooling, you can share the things that you were never taught in school or growing up in general. But there's got to be a question here too. Sometimes we can say, well, I was taught this, and that is so absolutely maybe wrong, and we're going to swing the pendulum all the way over to the other side. Or maybe you're just like, I think that's wrong, and we swing the pendulum. So just be careful of not swinging the pendulum so far unless you are 100% sure, or even it's okay. I have at times, and many times, especially the ages that my kids are, be like, I just found this information out, and it's kind of, and finding some supporting evidence for it, but hold it a bit lightly. But overall, we get to share the things that we were never taught. There's so many things that I was not taught because in school, it was like you have to learn because they had set. The state had set what you had to learn and telling you what the teachers had to teach you in each grade. And then when you got to, say, middle school and high school and you had just different courses, it would be in geometry 1, what you had to learn, in algebra 1, what you had to learn, just so that you could easily just go from one grade to the next. And so that was already set. And so there wasn't any room for the other things, the things like how to actually function in the world. And I know this one example that I see often on social media. They'll say, oh, I learned the Pythagorean theorem, but nobody ever taught me how to do my taxes. Okay, yeah, I can get that. I understand that. But then I'm also like, is that the school's job to teach you how to do that? Like, where do parents come in? It's kind of like parents assuming that their kids are going to come to faith and they're going to understand God and the Bible and have a biblical worldview because they bring them to church on Sundays and they put them in youth group. And then that's how it's going to happen. No, parents have to come alongside, and we get to do this all day, every day, because we homeschool. But I know that there are some things that you wish that you were exposed to, that you had the opportunity to learn, that you actually knew about, some practical things even, right? You can think of some practical things that you felt completely unprepared for and had to learn as a young adult or an adult. And so you get to share those things that you were never taught. Maybe you wish that you had spent more time in school on art or music or history or science or mathematics, and you can do that with your kids. But we also have to remember that sometimes our natural bent might want us to learn more about, typically we might say, I wanted to learn more about art and music and history, but they were so heavy with the science and the math, and that's just because that's the way your brain works. But you might have a child that would love the science and the math. I do say they really should be more well-rounded and exposed to art and be able to appreciate art and music and history and have an understanding of history. But the really cool thing is that we get to say, what is it that I wish that I had learned when I was in school, when I was their age? You can just focus on this year. Don't worry about the other years. Just focus on this year and begin to incorporate those. So say to yourself, what do I wish that the educational years taught me? And remember, it's not just book work. It can be book work, but it can be a lot of other things as well. I did an episode at the beginning of the summer talking about things like soft skills to teach your kids. You might want to go back and listen to that episode just to kind of give you an idea of like, oh, okay, that's not necessarily book work, but that's a really good thing for me to teach my children. The second thing that I really see how we can rewrite the story with the years that we are homeschooling is that we get to incorporate biblical truth formally and organically 24/7. I'm just going to go from my own upbringing and just my own observations. It's really hard when kids are gone for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and then they're home for a few hours and you have homework and you're trying to figure out what do they teach them today that I have to break down and tell them actually the truth and tell them where God stands on that information. and to do it in a way that is organically, because it is fine to have the formalness. And I think that you absolutely should. You should do Bible time. You should talk about all of those things. There's some really great resources at the bare minimum. This is even the bare minimum, but you should be reading the Bible to them. If you're like, I don't know what resources to use, pick up your Bible and just start to read. Read a section or a chapter or a couple of verses and discuss it with your kids at the bare minimum every day or most every single day. And then if you have budget for it and you find some resources that you want, go ahead and incorporate those. And so have that formal time. When we were in the thick of homeschooling years, and even now this homeschool year, I will have my homeschoolers, and this year I have one homeschooler, he will do his own Bible study type of thing during the homeschool day. That's required as a part of his studies. And then we'll do stuff together as a family as well. And so there was at one point me and 3 kids, and we would discuss, especially as they got older, theology. And it was just, we'd get into books and we would have really great discussions. And then there would be just the organic teaching of it. When you start to notice a child has a bad attitude, or a child is picking on others, or a child is being really bossy or being rude, you notice these things. That's when you can organically begin to incorporate biblical truth. And so it's not just a formal thing, because when we're just formally just telling our kids, thou shalt not, after a while, it just gets to be, speaking from experience, I just started to close my ears. I wasn't really listening to it. And you'll start to see kids just kind of shut down. And we don't want them to shut down. We want them to see that God is good and he loves us. But then balance that with, yes, we have a sinful nature. And so what do we do about that? So the second way we get to rewrite the story is that you get to incorporate biblical truth formally and organically 24/7 with your children. And that's a heavy task. That is a lot. But I promise you, by doing so, your reward, the fruit of that, is coming. The third way you get to rewrite the story is that you get to give your children different opportunities than they would have had otherwise. Yes, schools have, I can actually see that schools in my area where I am now have more opportunities for kids than they did when I was in, say, high school back in the 90s. I know, so long ago. Some of you are probably born in the 90s. But there's a lot more opportunities, but it's different because you still have to report to school. Yeah, you might be able to go and do like a work, like, I guess go to maybe a VOTEC or something, or to be able to do like, I forget what they call it, but like a work program where you can get off of in the afternoon and go and work. My 20-year-old has a friend that he met because he saw this other young man who was mowing lawns. And he's, kind of went up and they introduced themselves, and because a lot of the guys are older. And so it turned out that he was at a local school. And so he would go to school in the morning for a few hours and he had the rest of the day. So he was working on his business during that time, which is a great opportunity. But our kids get to have those opportunities 24/7. We don't have to necessarily answer to anybody else. We don't have to set things up. We don't have to get permission to leave the school or do any type of formal paperwork. But your children get to have different opportunities than they would have had otherwise. You get to do field trips during the day. You get to maybe put your kids into situations where they can shadow for possible careers. You get to there's so much. I can't even list all of the opportunities. And you get to decide, what does that look like this year? So the different opportunities, let me give you an example. I had shared this in a newsletter a couple of weeks ago. So if you don't get that newsletter, I encourage you to go ahead and sign up for that. Again, link is going to be in the show notes for you. And that way you can get it and you don't have to wait for a podcast episode to tell you about it. Usually I share things first, the podcast or the newsletter kind of goes back and forth. So if you get both of those, then you'll be good to go. But I was sharing about my now 12th grader and the courses that he's going to be doing. And so the opportunities that he has is because this is what he is interested in. And so 3 electives that he is taking this year. The first is Introduction to Entrepreneurship. The next one is digital, I forget what I called it. This is when you come up with names like digital media production or digital video production, something like that. And then the other one is storytelling through videography. And he's thrilled, absolutely thrilled about this. He's already started doing this summer, those couple of things. And so we're just really going to build on it. And so the opportunities that he has is that he is going to finish up his high school and he's going to have a business up and running. Again, doesn't mean you can't do it, but we get to do it with them. We get to guide them. We get to know the intricacies of things. And so maybe your child is not entrepreneurial minded. That's okay. When it comes to maybe college courses, they can take a lot more college courses than they can kind of pick and they can kind of choose. And just again, there's just so many opportunities. The sky really is the limit. And the last way that you get to rewrite your story, I mean, there's so many ways, but these were just the ones I really wanted to focus on, is that you get to rewrite the story is in sharing with your children what you are learning now. Does that have to do with a hobby? Does it have to do with history? Does it have to do with science? Does it have to do with who knows what? Does it have to do with maybe what you're learning now in the Bible, in your Bible study, own personal devotional time? We get to have our kids around and have these organic conversations. And sometimes we'll say something to them. You know this happens. You say something and it seems like it just went over their head. And a little while later, they bring it back up because they've been mulling over it. They've been thinking about it. And if they're in school, you might say something before school, and then they think of something maybe during the school day. By the time they get home, their brain is fried and they forget. But by being together, we get to rewrite that relationship that we get to have with our kids. And they could say, do you remember when you said this morning, blah, blah, blah? And you say, yeah, I do. Well, how come? And they ask a question, or I was thinking, and then they get to expound and they get to tell you what they were thinking. So an example of this just kind of in a practical way is my daughter and I, and as I, in the past couple of years, have really been learning how to take better care of my body and how to step out of the diet cycle and how to actually view my body and to fuel it and to strengthen it so that I can meet the needs and serve my family and serve my community and serve all of you. And so I've been able to equip her. Now, I have been doing this, have been talking about things. She's a woman now. And so for years, we've been talking about things and preparing her for next steps and puberty and all those things. And I've been very open with her. And again, if your kids are in school, doesn't mean that you can't share these things with them, but we get to do it 24/7. We get to notice something, we get to say something, and we get to fill them up. And this continues. So my daughter now is 22. So we get to do this even as they get older. And so the example is that I've been sharing with her what I've been learning about strength training, and she has joined in the past couple of years, and she's been teaching her friends what she has been learning. And so we get to pass it on. And so now I feel like she is hopefully the one that's going to break this diet cycle that has been going on with me and then, previous generations in my family. And so that she knows how to fuel and strengthen her body and how to keep it healthy through all of the various seasons in life. Right now, she's a young, unmarried woman. And so therefore, things will change. She gets married and has kids and gets older, and she'll know the basis, the foundation. So that's just a really practical way of being able to share what you're learning. But what are you learning now? What are you excited about? What are you passionate about? You get to teach that to your children on whatever level, whatever age they are at this time. So for me, I've just been so excited to realize that I can rewrite the story. And guess what, friend? You can rewrite the story too. Not just your children's story, your story as well. Again, before we close out, if you plan on going to Wild and Free in a couple of weeks, please let me know. Contact me, let me know. And please, love to have you come to Little by Little Homeschool Conference on Saturday, October 18th in Syracuse, New York. Go ahead and get your ticket so we can meet up there as well. It's going to be a really great day of being able to refresh and rejuvenate you and energize you for the rest of the homeschool year. In the meantime, think about how you can rewrite the story in your family. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.